Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
Israel's military has intensified its attacks on the Gaza Strip, killing at least 51 Palestinians since dawn. Gaza's health ministry reports Israel bombed 3 electric power generators and fuel storage tanks at the besieged Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. They've also surrounded Gaza's Al-Awda hospital. With Israel's latest attacks, only 19 of Gaza's 38 hospitals are still operating, albeit at severely limited capacity.
We go now to Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis, where we're joined by Dr. Victoria Rose, a British senior plastic and reconstructive surgeon with the National Health Service. She's been on 3 medical missions to Gaza since October 2023. We're talking to her on the day this week after it's been announced by Britain that they're going to pause trade talks with Israel, given what is happening in Gaza right now. Dr. Victoria Rose, tell us what's happening there. What are you finding?
So we arrived about we arrived on the 13th of May, and we've been working at Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis since the 15th. As you said, it's not my first trip, so there's some comparisons here, but the main thing that's different really is the state of the population. I mean, it's very clear that we're dealing with a completely different patient population now. These people haven't had any food in since the 2nd of March. They are malnourished. The children are particularly taking the brunt of this. They are all a lot shorter than their Western counterparts. That's always been a problem from their chronic malnutrition. But they are very, very thin. We are having a lot of problems with wound healing because obviously if you're not getting enough nutrients and vitamins, your cells are not turning over in a timely fashion and you can't heal your wounds. On top of that, we are having dire problems with infection. This is related to the malnutrition, but also related to the situation that the people are in. They are living in tents, it's dirty, we're running out of clean water. Israel have stopped the vaccination programs. It's the worst it's ever been.
And Dr. Rose, if you could say, what kinds of injuries are you seeing most often, and particularly on children?
So they're all blast and bomb injuries, and there's a couple of, there's 2 types of wounds that you see from a bomb going off or an explosion. The first is a burn from the heat of the explosion, and we're seeing some huge burns, 40–50% burns in children, the sort of burns that are very rarely survivable in the UK when we have all of our intensive care colleagues around us and specialist hospitals. We still have problems supporting children with this size burn in the UK. So you can imagine what that burn is like over here. The other injuries that we're seeing are due to the penetration of the missiles. So what happens in a blast is whatever is around you, either the local masonry or a car or whatever was blown up with you, is ejected at a very high speed and it hits the civilians like a missile. This will either penetrate the head, chest or abdomen, and if it does that, you're unlikely to survive. If it penetrates a limb, you're likely to survive and you'll be brought to a hospital. What we're seeing is traumatic amputations of hands, fingers, feet, toes, legs, arms. And what isn't amputated is severely destructed. So we are trying to piece together bones, patch missing bits of skin, nerves are damaged, really, really severe injuries.
So, Dr. Rose, you're describing these severe injuries on a large number of children, but you're also working with very little medicine. If you could, explain how you're doing this surgical work with access to such few anesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that we're low on at the moment is antibiotics. We ran out of augmentin or coamoxiclav, which is the most standard antibiotic that we use in these type of injuries. And we're down to a very weaker substitute, ceftriaxone, which we don't actually use in the UK now. And that's our real problem, is that we're not giving adequate antibiotics to these people. We just don't have them.
And Dr. Rose, Nasser Hospital is not far from the fighting. Could you talk about your concerns about a possible forced evacuation, and if such were to occur, where the patients at Nasser would go?
Yeah, we're checking the IDF website, which is idf.il. And if you're in Gaza, it picks up your location immediately. And they've gridded the entirety of the strip. We are basically a grid away from the active fighting, so about 4 streets, about a K&a-half from the evacuation zone. We had dire problems on Tuesday when that zone was announced, in that quite a lot of my team had to leave me to go and evacuate their families. My anaesthetist today on Tuesday walked 20K with his 5, 6 and 8-year-old to evacuate them from where they lived in East Khan Younis into Al-Mawasi, which is the humanitarian zone. So we had a real problem with staff on Tuesday, but our main issue is we are the last standing hospital in the south of Gaza. The European Gaza hospital was taken on Wednesday of last week, and the only other hospitals around us are field hospitals. So there's some good field hospitals. There's the UK Med, ICRC, MSF Belgium. There's also the Jordanian and the Kuwait hospital, but they are all tents. These are all tent hospitals that don't have any ICU capacity, and they don't have any generated oxygen. The only standing hospital around us is the Palestinian Red Cross Society, but that's part tents, and that again doesn't have an ICU, and it can't generate its own oxygen. So if Nasser closes, we have a huge issue on our hands, because we have an adult ICU and a pediatric ICU, and we have nowhere to send these patients. Anyone here at the moment that's dependent on oxygen is also at risk. If Nasser closes, hundreds of patients will die.
Let me ask you, Dr. Rose, if news of what's happening in the outside world is coming to you. In a moment, we're going to talk to the former Labour leader of Britain, Jeremy Corbyn. But the fact that Israel's staunchest allies, UK, your own country, where the Prime Minister Starmer has said that the suffering of the innocent children being bombed again is utterly intolerable. And we're going to speak with an EU representative, where the European Union is also putting pressure on Israel. Does that make a difference, and what are you ultimately calling for?
It has made a difference. It does feel like finally our voices are being heard, but it is a shame that it comes so late. And I think we need a little bit more action than what we're seeing. Really, what we need is an end to this enforced blockade. As I said, we haven't had any aid or any food in since the 2nd of March. And the 9 trucks that came in yesterday are still parked in Israeli territory in Gaza, and the Palestinian trucks have not been allowed to pick them up. So it's really dire. I think we need to put the politics aside here. It's a humanitarian crisis, and Israel has got to open the borders to let food in, to let medical aid in, and to let aid workers in. And then you need to let us work safely.
I want to thank you, Dr. Victoria Rose, for being with us. British senior plastic and reconstructive surgeon with the National Health Service, who's been on 3 medical missions to Gaza since October 2023. My final question is, your colleagues and yourself, why do you put yourself in this incredibly dangerous situation where hundreds of health workers, doctors, nurses have been killed, have been imprisoned?
It's difficult to understand unless you come here and see the difference that you make. We always worry when we come here that we might not be of any use, that we might get all our kit confiscated, that we might not have a hospital to go to. But what we always say is the main thing is to come here to bear witness, because you're not seeing what I'm seeing, because there's been a complete block to all media. So I'm here, number 1, to bear witness. Number 2, I'm here to stand with my colleagues. And these are people that I worked with before this war started. And every time I come, they are so pleased to see me. And they need a break. And I'm an extra pair of hands. And it makes a huge difference. And thirdly, It's one case at a time, but I'm definitely making a difference, and I know we've saved some lives.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.